Hi, this is ScentTech series number 3. In this series, I will interview Jolanta Rieksta, scientist from Norway and Denmark. But before that, I will tell a little bit about project called Scent Camera. And Scent Camera is a project which is financed by Norway via Norway Grants and by Latvia via Latvian Investment and Development Agency. And the project called is Scent Recorder for Improving Emotional Well-being. And within this project, we aim to build a scent recorder. It's a device. This is a mock-up. And the device who would allow anyone in the world to capture, store, and release a scent. So basically, idea is that there will be scent capsule or storage place where people can store recorded scents, and then it's a scent recorder. And the scent recorder has several functions. One is function to record scent. You just go and you go and find the source and record it into this capture, and then release, so that then you can scent. Then you can smell it, and you can change the intensity as well as raise. And during this project, we aim to build the manufacturing prototype of this device. So now we will start with our interview. Maybe Jolanta, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hi, and I'm happy to be part of the ScentTech series, right? I'm Jolanta Rieksta. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Copenhagen, and I'm a biologist by training. I'm various stressors in high latitudes, particularly in the Arctic, and that's where volatiles, because I'm interested in particularly how stress plants emit these volatiles, and what does that mean for the ecosystem functioning and potentially our climate, particularly in the Arctic ecosystems. I'm originally from Latvia, and I did my master's in Norway, and then I moved to Denmark to do my Ph.D. And now I'm a postdoc in the Copenhagen.
And
yes.
Because when you're capturing these volatiles, right, in Arctic, it's some kind of scent recording, right, already?
Yes, I particularly record scent.
Yes. Can you just tell us what the process is and what technology it involves? Because a lot of people asking me whether it's real, right? And you're saying it's already real, right?
Yeah, so maybe I can explain a little bit the motivation of recording scent in the Arctic. So with the climate change, with the warming happening twice the rate of the global average in the Arctic, we are expecting higher volatile emissions from plants, because plants emit volatiles scent due to their physiological processes in the plant. Because of direct temperature increase, they emit much more. So that means there'll be more volatiles from the Arctic. At the same time, when plants are stressed, they emit more volatiles. And the Arctic is predicted to experience higher insect herbivore pressure. And that means much more caterpillars will feed on the plants, and that is causing them stress. So when they're more stressed, they emit more volatiles. So that's the motivation, particularly for my research, to study scent in the Arctic. And the volatiles are climate-relevant gases. They can affect the atmosphere's chemistry and physics. And that means we need to know how much of these volatiles are emitted from the Arctic, in how big quantities and what kind of composition, to understand what it means for the local and regional climates when we want to model them, and also to understand how these emissions will change in future with the climate change. So what I do, I do a lot of field work. I go to, for example, I spent 3 months in Greenland. I have spent some time in southern Greenland. I've spent some time in northern Sweden and northern Norway. And I collect the volatiles in the field. What I have with me, I have like these custom built boxes where we have a pull and push system. And then we literally use cooking bags that you use to roast your veggies or chicken, depending on your dietary preferences. We enclose the plant into this little bag, and then we use these pumps that pull and push the air. And then we have like this absorbent cartridge that you showed in the picture, like something similar to that, that is actually trapping the volatiles. So we do that. We can also have like some squared chambers that can be put on like vegetation to measure the volatiles, but the principle is the same. It's like dynamic enclosure method. And then we capture the volatiles in these absorbent cartridges, metal tubes, and then we send it to our labs, and then we analyze it with gas chromatography, mass spectrometry. And then there comes a lot of bioinformatics processes and analysis to understand how much is there, what is there, and what does it mean. That's like a little intro, what we do when we go out.
And what kind of technology you use, right? For this?
Yeah, we use pull-push, mainly pull-push dynamic enclosure method. I'm also now working on a project where we are measuring the volatiles at the ecosystem level. And that's much more advanced and complex system. It's called proton transfer time of the flight mass spectrometer, where we have like a tower that is measuring wind direction and the speed. And on the bottom, we have this instrument that can capture the air from the top of the tower, and then it goes down to the instrument, and then we can measure the emissions real time 24/7. So for the past few years, we had this instrument in northern Sweden in the mountain birch forest, and we capture, record these volatiles 24/7 throughout the whole growing season. And that will tell us like about, the seasonal variation, if some stresses like herbivores come in, how the emissions change. But this method is, it records real time, but it doesn't detect and identify. We cannot specifically identify each compound. So that's why we combine the gas chromatography mass spectrometry analysis with it. When we go out and capture, enclose one plant and measure with these absorbent cartridges, and then we send it to the lab for GCMS analysis. And then we can combine these two and have a better understanding of what's going on with the emissions in mountain birch forests, for example.
Basically, right. What I understand, is that the flora are they just emit some sense, and you use this as some kind of detection of climate changes, right? So more
detection of
climate changes, right? So actually, so we are seeing whether there are more and more, or how these plants change the sense, right? And this is indicator of climate change, right? This is one of use case how scents are analyzed in your science, right?
So we have we can actually use climate change manipulation experiments. So we can, for example, increase the temperature. We have like these open top chambers that are like specific material chambers that are heating the vegetation by, let's say, 2 to 3 degrees. And then we can go to the field, to these experimental sites, and measure the volatiles from the little experimental sites where the warming has been, where the plants have been exposed to higher temperatures. And then we can measure from the areas, like the plots next to it, where the temperatures hasn't been increased. And then we can see how plants respond to the increased temperature in the field and how plants respond to the regular conditions. We can also manipulate increased cloudiness, for example, by having a little dome-shaped tent over the plants. And that will kind of shading or increase cloudiness, which is predicted for some areas in the Fennoscandia. And then we can do measurements in there, and then also in the place this setup hasn't been applied next to it, basically, and then we can compare those. And that's when we can say or try to understand how plants respond, how volatiles might change to climatic factors such as increased cloudiness or warming. So we use these kind of experimental sites to do that.
You told me about one more interesting experiment that you did for one artist, that you record some scent of some trees, and later on with aim to reproduce it, right? Can you tell about that project?
Yeah, so there's one artist and two of my colleagues have been going out and collecting volatiles in a collaboration with the art project. And what they did, they went out to collect the volatiles from the pear trees. And artists wanted to recreate the scent of each individual pear tree. So then my colleagues went out there and they collected the scent, and then they did the analysis in the lab and then provided the chemical composition and the amounts of each compounds in it. And then this artist recreated this scent from each individual pear tree. And I smelled these compounds, the scent tubes, and you can see that, yeah, each individual tree had a different smell. And it was like, the idea, it's like the plant communication, which is actually happening between the trees.
And what do you think are the most significant scientific discoveries, maybe in your field, regarding scents?
I think particularly in my field, because I work with the plant stress, particularly insect herbivores, I think it is the discovery from 80s where two scientists found out that there are interactions between plants, insect herbivores, and herbivore enemies. So it's like these tree trophic interactions, what is happening, and the interactions and communication, what is happening between plants, insects, and insect predators. And I think that is the whole basis of the research that I've been doing, and that is since 80s. Yeah. So 4 years later, we still have a lot of questions unanswered, but some questions are answered.
Yes. Yeah. And what kind of questions are answered?
So questions are answered that there are specific chemicals plants release to ask insect predators to come and eat the larvae that's feeding. We also now have, we can say that plants communicate with each other with these compounds. If one plant is being attacked by the insect herbivore, then this plant can emit specific compound, like this plant can emit compounds that can be detected by the other plant. So the other plant can induce some compounds to potentially defend themselves in the future. It's super exciting.
And what scientists would like to discover, right? What skills are interesting to know?
Yeah, so I think what I think is interesting about volatile scent research is that it is so diverse and it spans all the fields. So I think particularly my field is like between, like, it's in ecology, plant science, atmosphere science. And what I think, at least in the broad field that I am in, people would like to understand what does it mean for the future emissions, like how climate change will affect the future emissions of the VOCs, and what does it mean for the atmospheric chemistry and the physics. And yeah, I think that's what we are trying to understand.
And what I saw, right, looking in Google Scholars, that different things regarding fragrance capturing or scent capturing, it's becoming more and more widespread only in this century, right? It's like let's say in the last 20 years. Why it's so? What could be reason why particularly this century we are so becoming more interested in scents and in scent recording?
I think the discoveries of the analytical methods, instruments for the detection, they allow for the better detection, more detailed detection. We can know more specifically which compounds are being emitted. I think this is like the advance of the technology and the instrumentation that allows such detailed analysis. And that wasn't the case before. So I think that's probably is, at least in my opinion, it is driving the volatile research. And the fact that we can take like this gigantic instrument and put it in the middle of the Arctic or tundra and leave it there for years and understand what plants emit there, it's just fantastic. So I think these are kind of things that drives the research. And also the bioinformatics part, like new softwares of trying to understand the emissions and chemistry and things like that.
You told, right, what is the role of scents in plant perception, right? How they communicate, how they feel danger, and etc. And do you know something? What is the role of scents in human perception, right?
Yeah, so
is it similar, right, or it's different, or?
Whether it's biologically and scientifically correct to say it's similar, but I think they serve several functions, including warning, right? And that is true also for the plants. So if there's like a fire hazard or like a smoke or some gas, it is warning us for potential hazards. But also it is very powerful sense that I think is overlooked, like underestimated. And it is participating in like enriching our life experiences. For example, also participates in enjoying the food and contributing to the flavor. One thing is like, okay, if you close your nose, then you will only feel the sweetness, bitterness, savory, saltiness. But because of the smell, we can actually have much more enriched flavor. And that is because of these volatiles present in the foods we eat. And I think the sense affects like many aspects of our life, enjoying food or enriching the experience when we go out in a beautiful forest. It's probably strengthens the memory of certain activities that we have been exposed. So I think it is pretty important sense we have.
And what is the role of sense, right, in your perception of the world, body, and yourself?
Yeah, I think I have actually very sensitive smell. I think I'm very, and I'm also very attracted to smells. And I think it is a very important part of my life. I remember things by the smell. So I think when you're driving, now I'm also do practice, like I'm getting driver's license. And like when you drive, it's like 90% vision, right? But when you, for example, are walking out in a forest, one thing is the visual thing, but like it's also the smell. And then I remember some things by the smell. It's interestingly, for example, because we work with the volatiles, when I was younger, I used to wear perfume. But then, for example, I think it is in Gothenburg University that they have scent-free zone, which means that people are not allowed to use perfume. And I think it makes sense because like a lot of people get headaches from the too strong scents, aromas. And then the neutral smell is then everyone is kind of like exposed to it. And then it's not triggering some headache or whatever in others. And also when we go out in the field, we are not allowed to use any deodorants or clothing detergents that has a smell, because they emit volatiles that plants emit. So I think I'm like totally try to be neutral in my senses, like in my use of aromas, but I am very sensitive to it. So I can really detect when people are using it, but maybe it is because I'm now not using perfume, or I'm not using detergent with the very crazy smells, or when I go out in the field, I'm not allowed to use any to not interfere with my experience. So in that sense, when I started working with volatiles, it became very significant, and I noticed much more senses, smells around myself. But maybe I needed to reduce down my consumption in order to be better at sensing around myself. Yeah.
And why? What do you think? Why would the humanity would need medium for sense? Similar, like we have a photo camera for visual stimulus, or audio recorder for sound.
So we have 5 senses. All of them is equally important in many situations. Some of them are more important in one than another. And then the smell enriches your life experience around you. And for that reason, why not? Why not remember things based on their smell, if that was the thing that you noticed about the place or situation you were exposed to? So I think it's a really interesting concept and idea to give that dimension to the experience. And nowadays we have like 4D TV cinema, right? So you go out and they spray some water or some senses. Why not to bring this experience also to your daily life or memory consolidation?
And what would what would be your first sense? What would you record if with scent recorder, with scent camera, when it will be ready, right?
Yeah, so I think I'm biased, but I think I would record a mountain birch forest in the subarctic. Like the smell in the summer it's something incredible, and I wish everyone has a chance to experience it. Like the birches emit like these carbon 10 and carbon 15 compounds, monoterpenes and sesquiterpenes, that are very intense in their smell. And when the weather is really warm, like the whole forest just has this crazy beautiful scent. I would like to record it. And for example, I would like to show people, friends, what is it to be out there, because the scent is like a really significant part of the experience. And then I would like to bring this 4D, the scent experience, to let's say presentations or conferences. I could present a graph showing like these compounds are contributing to this and this, or these are the results, and then you just spray out some of the compounds, and that's just like people might remember the results better. People might have like a really different perception and experience of the whole thing when you could just like spray out some of the volatiles.
Yes, thank you very much for this incredible interview, Jolanta.
Thank you for inviting, and good luck with the whole project, and looking forward to have a scent camera in my hands in future.
Thank you.